Evening and a warm welcome to all the invited guests, KMA leaders, and members to this edition of a masterclass organized by the KMA Women Managers Forum. Let us begin the session with a minute's silence and pray to Almighty that we all remain safe and healthy and the whole world overcomes the challenging times that we are going through. Continue to be seated wherever you are and close your eyes for a minute. Thank you and good evening once again to our guest of the evening, Mr. Subba Vaidyanathan, founder of Being Sattva, Women Managers Forum leader, our managing committee member and executive director at Federal Bank, Ms. Shalini Warrior, past presidents whom I can see here, Mr. S.R. Nair, Mr. Joseph Philip, senior vice president, Ms. Nirmala Lili, honorary secretary Joint Secretary Mr. Algiers Khalid, other members of the Managing Committee, members of the Women Managers Forum, members of KMA and other local management associations, students and invited guests. Good to see that we have a fairly good attendance already today, and I'm sure it will swell even further as we progress. Well, this is how KMA has been pulling on in these troubled times to keep our members engaged, Mr. Subba, to remain positive and provide with meaningful deliberations and events of utility. This is the 12th event of this KMA year being organized by the Women Managers Forum as part of the annual theme of KMA, that is spearheading responsible management. We have treated diversity and inclusion as one of the main focus areas of this year. In this regard, Madam Shalini Warrior has been conceiving many programs under the aegis of the women leaders, that is the Women Managers Forum, to help women in their businesses, professions, and personal lives to get on with the learning and innovation to remain updated and stay ahead in these changing times. But once we got going, we realized that all these topics are also quite inclusive, as there is no gender disparity when it comes to these topics, and it's important to all of us and not just the women folk. Today's speaker too, being one from the opposite gender, proves testimony to this. The KMA Women Managers Forum started off the year with a panel discussion in December with a very decorated panel of speakers leading a discussion on the topic Glass Ceilings for Women Leaders, Myth or Reality, and thereafter we had a masterclass on digital marketing led by a domain expert from Chennai, Ms. Aarti Srinath. That was in January. The third program of the forum was a chat session dwelling on a very useful and interesting topic, Make Your Money Work For You, Financial Planning Made Easy. And the fourth event was a session with academician Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan of IIM Bangalore, addressing us on the importance of continuous learning and staying agile. And in April, we had Professor Neharika Vora, Vice Chancellor, Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University, talking about women directors in the corporate world and the need for more of them. The sixth event had a very profound topic for discussion. Women leaders, assertiveness is not aggressiveness. And we had Ms. Shivapriya Balagopal of Eastern Continents, Ms. Sreyashi Sen of Darpan Global, and Ms. Hema Mani of Lennox International, and Mr. R. Krishna Kumar of Siemens, sharing their thoughts on this very relevant topic. In June, that is in the seventh event of the forum, we had a very interesting session on a very topical topic, boosting emotional immunity. And we had an expert in dealing with the happiness quotient, Ms. Amrita Gupta Nair, founder of the Happiness HQ, engaged in a very interesting chat with Ms. Sujata Kshirsagar, Chief Sales Officer at Career Launcher. In the eighth event, which was another masterclass, it was on a technical topic, which has become part of our day-to-day life now, that is artificial intelligence. And we had the perfect man to share his expertise on this domain in Mr. Robin Tommy, who heads the Rapid Labs involved in innovation and research at TCS. And in the ninth edition of WMF, or Women Managers Forum, we had Ms. Elizabeth Kurugula, founder of Greenshine, a successful enterprise in the UAE, be assisting the auto care business in reducing the wastage of water. In the 10th monthly event of the forum, we had a very interesting session with the topic Build a Brand Called You, delivered by a young entrepreneur, Dr. Shandamarai Gokula Krishnan, Chief Executive Officer at Beta Monks Innovations Private Limited. And last month, in the 11th edition, we had Mr. Dimant Parekh, founder and CEO, the Better India and the Better Academy, and Ms. Meera Haridas, Director, Verkener Business Associates Private Limited, in a conversation mode on the topic Building a Better India. And all these events were well received by our members. If we go by the feedback received at KMA through the feedback forms as well as the direct messages received by us. Those of you who have missed any of these events or any of our past events, please tune into the YouTube channel of KMA, where you can watch all of this without a loss of even a minute. Today, we have the 12th event of the Women Managers Forum, yet another masterclass to be delivered by a speaker who is the founder of Being Sattva, taking us through a session on the topic, You Are the Power. Very interesting one indeed, as each one of us are following a quest for finding that power in us. You are the power, I guess, may explain more on the profound words all of us know in the Upanishad, very commonly known as Tattvamasi. As we all live our lives trying to create a legacy that lives beyond us, our speaker, Mr. Subba Vaidyanathan, also is busy in inspiring people to live their lives to the fullest, to leave behind a rich legacy for each of us. On behalf of the Managing Committee at KMA and all present here today, I formally welcome you, Mr. Subba, to this session. And to formally introduce him and to take us through this masterclass, we have our own Managing Committee member and the one who guides the Women Managers Forum members, Ms. Shalini Warrior. Welcome, Madam Shalini, to this session. I also extend my hearty welcome to all the past presidents of KMA present here, members of the Managing Committee and the Executive Committee, Senior Vice President, Joint Secretary, Executive Director, members of KMA and other LMAs, members of the Women Managers Forum, student members, members of the media, and all invited guests to this session which is about to begin. So now let me invite Ms. Shalini Warrior to formally introduce the speaker and invite him for the masterclass. For those of you who do not know her by any chance, Ms. Shalini Warrior is one of the top-notch corporate leaders of our times, with a brilliant academic record and a distinguished career in banking and finance, and is currently the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer at Federal Bank. Over to our Managing Committee member, Madam Shalini, to formally introduce the speaker and to take us through the session, including the Q&A. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Madhav, and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming on to this session, which is being conducted under the Women Managers Forum ambit. A warm welcome to you, Subba, and thank you very much for agreeing to come on to the session. I'm not going to take too much time to introduce Subba. As I was saying just before the program started, I have known Subba for a very, very long time, since 1992. So Subba is, was a corporate professional for a very long time. He worked with Standard Chartered Bank in multiple stints across multiple geographies, and did a very large spectrum of roles, particularly on the retail banking side. In 2016, he decided that there was a life beyond Standard Chartered Bank. There was a life outside of Standard Chartered Bank. There was a life outside of banking. And Subba decided to move away from the corporate life into what he does now and what he's been working on. So today he's here, not in his role as a corporate professional, but in his role as a coach, mentor, and somebody who's now into really encouraging, various young leaders to derive what is their true potential. Subba is a strong believer in yogic sciences. He runs a resort in Bali called Being Sattva, which I've had the privilege, honor, and pleasure of staying in. Very, very beautifully done. and one of those rare ones that you see in Bali, which is completely vegan and vegetarian. So, truly remarkable. Subha is now a corporate trainer, as I said, has been doing a lot of sessions across the globe, runs a series of meditation sessions, which are very, very popular across the world. And honestly, he's been right now running a program for Federal Bank's women, it's not just women, Federal Bank's leaders, which has proved to be quite popular with our leaders. So I'll stop at that point and request Subha to take over the session. How does one go about discovering the power in oneself? Thank you, Subha, once again, and welcome. Thank you, everybody else, for coming in onto the session. Thanks, Subha.
Thank you very much, Shalini, and thank you, Mr. Madhav Chandran. Delighted to be here. It's an honor to be with all of you, and this is very special. Special to me because I'll just share this a little bit of why every such occasion touches my heart and my soul. Because right now we have 69 people on the call, including me. So let's say it's 68. And it's my belief that every one of you, every single person on this call will have an influence of at least over 1,000 people. So when I'm speaking with all of you, I'm touching 68,000 lives. And that's why I feel that this occasion is very special. And you will understand what I'm about to say, that in each one of you, if you find that potential, that power, what I call superpower, and you're able to create a positive impact with that, that is, as Mr. Madhav Chandran said, the only legacy that we leave behind. Because anything in terms of physical assets we leave behind, we don't know whether it will stay. But anything that we leave behind in terms of creating an impact on people, that will always stay. Now, I just want to start with my thesis, if you will, or my belief. Today, we all look to technology to change the world. Today, we look to change economic frameworks, political frameworks, social frameworks, all of these, or even the talk of environment and green, to create a new normal, a new reality, a new world, a future for all of humanity. It is my belief that it's the pilot in the airplane, in the jet, or is the driver in the car who has the ability to make that impact. So which means if the humans at the center of technology, at the center of economics, at the center of society, at the center of creating this new world are not balanced, anything that they create, run, operate is going to be imbalanced multiple times. And this is the manifestation that we're seeing in this world. And that's one of the main reasons why I chose 5 years ago to give up my corporate life and walk this path so that I am able to take this message and seed this thought with my ambition, 1 million people in this lifetime. So this is even more special because one of my main areas of focus is to work with youth, young adults, and women. And that's why this particular forum, which Shalini invited me to, I was delighted to be part of it. And you'll see shortly what I mean and why this is so important to all of us. So let's begin our journey of today. My only request to all of you is this. This is an experiential talk. You will enjoy this more if you had a pen and paper in front of you and participated, so that you're able to experience what I'm trying to say in its fullest sense. So if you don't have a pen and paper, please use your phones and the notes page in your phone, and you'll be able to use that. Yeah. So let's begin. I wanted to start with 4 amazing women that I have been touched by in the recent past. Any one of you would know Mirabai Chanu, the silver medalist from the Tokyo Olympics, Tokyo 2020, though it was in 2021. And the beauty of her story is, and each of them has a very special story. That's why I want to spend 2 minutes on each of them. Mirabai did not finish in Rio. She went to Rio. She came from a really difficult background. She took the truck every day to her training. And then she trained so hard, went all the way, made it to the Rio Olympics and did not finish. She came back a broken athlete, but she was able to find that courage, that inner strength, that superpower inside her to lift herself and come back to Tokyo and finish with a silver. All of you must have seen Tulsi Gowda recently. Tulsi Gowda, born in 1944, so almost 80 years old. She's known as a tree goddess, planted so far 30,000 trees. She, apparently when she walks into a forest, she will be able to identify which is the mother tree to all the other trees around. Completely dedicated to the cause of greening the world, her world. I'm sure all of you might have seen Urvashi Sahani, the 2017 social entrepreneur in India. She won the award for that. Urvashi got married when she was 17, had 2 daughters by the time she was 23. And soon after that, her sister, younger sister, was burned in an unfortunate dowry-related case. Her moment of epiphany was that. At that time, she said, I am going to stand up and make a difference to the girl child. She's a PhD from Berkeley. So that's why she is Dr. Urvashi Sahani. And she created this organization. She created a series of non-profits. One of them, which is very popular, is called, if I'm not mistaken, Study Hall Education Foundation. Yes, Study Hall Education Foundation. And so far, amongst all the enterprises, already touched 100,000 girls, giving them the courage that they can stand up for themselves and make a breakthrough. I'm sure all of you are seeing a lot about My Life in Full, the latest book which has been launched by Indra Nooyi. And it's an amazing book. If you haven't read, please buy the book and read the book. So in that, she talks about 3-4 things. And you see that if you go through all of them, there is something core at this. Indra talks about how for her to go to the US and make her mark first in BCG and then to move on from there to the corporate world meant a lot to her and to her family. It meant a lot for her to show her children of what a woman leader can do in the world. It meant a lot for her to bring a woman into an organization and demonstrate how that brings balance into not just the leadership, but the culture of the organization and what a woman is capable of bringing to an organization, which only a woman can. And of course, to inspire many more girls and women to be able to do that. I capture what is the success formula of all of them in one word: meaning. The power of meaning. So all of them are endowed, and all of you are endowed, all of us on this call are endowed with a superpower. if we can find a meaningful way to deploy that superpower, that is our best life. That is the way in which we can access infinite energy, unlimited energy. I must share with all of you that I work 7 days a week, like many of you, because we all work at home and at work, but I work on this completely 7 days a week. I work pretty much for the time I sleep. I'm on this job all the time. For the last 12 years, by the grace of the divine, and also, I believe, through the energy of the work that I'm able to access, I haven't had a cough, cold, or fever. I don't have a chronic condition up until now. And to me, a lot of it is not based on the yoga I practice or any of the other things that I do, but it's based on the meaning that the work I do holds for me. So every single day, I am connected to that super energy, that superpower, that infinite energy. And through that, I feel that I am connected with everyone I touch. That is the joy of my life. So while you go through the rest of this, I would encourage you to think of what is the joy of your life. Emily Smith. And it is really nice that you spoke, that you've all been through this happiness masterclass. Emily Esfahani Smith is a scientist, researcher, academician who's researched the topic of happiness. And we're going to hear from her in just a bit, but she has this wonderful book called The Power of Meaning. And you'll see about what she has to say about happiness and what she has to say about meaning. Let's just hear from her.
I used to think the whole purpose of life was pursuing happiness. Everyone said the path to happiness was success, so I searched for that ideal job, that perfect boyfriend, that beautiful apartment. But instead of ever feeling fulfilled, I felt anxious and adrift. And I wasn't alone. My friends, they struggled with this too. Eventually, I decided to go to graduate school for positive psychology to learn what truly makes people happy. But what I discovered there changed my life. The data showed that chasing happiness can make people unhappy. And what really struck me was this. The suicide rate has been rising around the world, and it recently reached a 30-year high in America. Even though life is getting objectively better by nearly every conceivable standard, more people feel hopeless, depressed, and alone. There's an emptiness gnawing away at people, and you don't have to be clinically depressed to feel it. Sooner or later, I think we all wonder, is this all there is? And according to the research, what predicts this despair is not a lack of happiness. It's a lack of something else, a lack of having meaning in life. But that raised some questions for me. Is there more to life than being happy? And what's the difference between being happy and having meaning in life? Many psychologists define happiness as a state of comfort and ease, feeling good in the moment. Meaning, though, is deeper. The renowned psychologist Martin Seligman says meaning comes from belonging to and serving something beyond yourself, and from developing the best within you. Our culture is obsessed with happiness, but I came to see that seeking meaning is the more fulfilling path. And the studies showed that people who have meaning in life, they're more resilient, they do better in school and at work, and they even live longer. So this all made me wonder, how can we each live more meaningfully?
I just wanted to suspend it right there because that's the exercise I want all of us to do right now. I want you to give a taste. I want you to get a taste right here and right now on how you can connect with that meaning. So in my life, I have constructed a process by which we can discover that super story, that best story, I call it a rainbow story. It is almost as if we are being touched by the rainbow or we are living in that rainbow. It is about that infinite potential being realized. So how do we do this? So get your pen and paper out and work with me here. So I talk about this as to what are the ingredients of this story. There is a mind, there is heart, and there is soul. May seem very simple, but intellectually, you need to connect with what is meaning for you, which means in your mind, intellectually, rationally, you should connect with it. Most of the time, we spend time only in this zone, but we don't connect with what is most important to all of us. Now reflect back on what are the best moments in your life. And you will connect back with emotion. So the question is, what holds meaning for you triggers what emotion in you? What are the emotions? And you may think, no, it's just joy and happiness, but it's much beyond that. For some of us, that is fulfillment. Some of us, success. Success is also an emotion. For some of us, it is about fulfillment. For some of us, it is about togetherness, which is being together with someone. So the question is, what emotions are you experiencing in that story? And then comes the third. It's the soul. And Madhav used this word, and I want to go back to, can you read this story to your child? Can you read the story to your mother? Can you read this story to your best friend? I'll push the envelope a little bit more and say, on the day you meet your maker, can you read this story to your maker and say, this is what I did with my superpowers that you gave me? So this is the legacy that we leave behind. So does this story meet that benchmark? Are you pushing yourself enough to be able to make that impact happen? I'm going to get you out of this comfort zone and ask you how you can construct this. Now, before I go there, I know this is not in my masterclass of today, but I'm going to just touch upon the point which Madhav raised. How do I find what is my superpower? So I'm just going to give you a simple trick which you cannot possibly do it in 5 minutes, but I feel you can touch it right here, right there, right now, which is think of the most challenging moment in your life. Period in your life, which was a huge challenge. It can be in the last week, last year, last 10 years ago, whatever it may be. Think of a moment in your life which was hugely challenging. It could have been at work, it could have been in life, it could have been in college, it could have been dealing with a regulator, it could have been dealing with a huge challenge, which is a PR issue. It could be something where your business was down, you had to pull it up, whatever it may be. It can be a difficult boss. It could be something at home, right? A difficult situation at home. So whatever is in that time, what skill of yours, what power of yours did you use to get yourself out of that? What skill or power of yours did you use to lift yourself out of that challenge? Just write that down, reflect on it, whatever comes. It may be a hard skill, it may be a soft skill, but sometimes people connect with others. That's the power. Connection is what they pull out. Sometimes it's perseverance. Sometimes it's their communication. Sometimes it is my learning ability to learn anything new. But sometimes it's my analytical skills. Whatever it may be for you, write that down. It may be a mixture of all this. That's what makes it special. Then another situation, another scene from your life. Something that you consider magical, miraculous, huge achievement in your life, a dramatic achievement in your life, which you're really proud of, but you created a huge impact too. In that moment, what powers were you using? In that moment of success, of achievement, of fulfillment, of impact, what power of yours were you using? Was it intellect? Was it connection? Was it communication? Was it your hard skills. It's something about something that you're really good at. It could be music, it could be art, it could be finance, it could be math, it could be something very specific in terms of hard skill too. So what were you using? So the same set, one applied to challenge, one applied to success. Think of what that is. Now a third moment, which is to do with what you truly enjoy doing, which means when you are in that zone, when you're doing that, when you're in that moment, there is no time, there is no space. You're so fully engaged in that. And you're so happy doing that, just for the sake of doing it. What skill of yours, what power of yours do you use when you're so happy, when you're so connected with the work that you're doing? So if you just pick these three moments and you try to triangulate between these, you will find that there is nobody else on this planet who has the power, which is the combination of these three, other than you. That's what makes you special. That's what makes it that nobody else can hold the power that you do. Right? So what are you going to do with this power? Now that you know what that power is, what are you going to do with it? So before I go further, I just wanted you to think about life and your story. And this is a question which normally comes, especially from most of the women that I work with, which is, there is multiple parts of life. How do I get work-life balance? And it's important for all of you to understand that work, relationships, which is family, community, and yourself, all four make up your life. There are 4 chapters or 4 parts to your story, to all our stories. Each of us can choose what is at the center of it. Sometimes it is work, sometimes it's family. And at different phases in life, different parts can be at the center, but that does not mean you need to eliminate the rest. So just keep this in mind that there are 4 parts to your story. Now let's get back to your story. How do you use your superpower to create an impact? Now, I want you to visualize just maybe next year, maybe 3 years ahead, maybe 5 years ahead, maybe 10 years ahead. If this was your best life, which means you had no constraints, you had a clean white board, forget about everything else. That's why we'll come to the other parts later. But if this was your best life in one of those 4 parts, whichever you've chosen, what is the new world? Describe that glorious world, that happy world, that impactful world where you are creating a positive impact, where you're living your best life, but you're using your superpowers. At work, what would be your best version of this? Just write this simply 3 years, 5 years from now. What is the best version of the story? It is a home run. You can call it that for 6 years, you've had 5 years, you've had the best period of time. What is that new story? Just take a few moments and think about where you are, what are you doing, who are you with, what are they doing, what is that world that you are in, right? You may name a role, you may name a situation, you may name an event, whatever it may be. So, as I said, different people capture this very differently. So as a person that I'm working with, her aspiration is to do fundamental scientific research. And her best version of the story of the next 5 years is that she is able to create a device, a biomechanical device, which people who are struggling, who cannot get knee replacement surgeries done, will be able to use. And that this can be used by people who cannot pay for it too. So a very low cost device to help, she calls it mobility and stability for people. That is the best version of her 5 years. There is another person I'm working with And she is based in California. And for her, the best version of her story is to be able to create a platform where many of the people who want to create health and wellness related activities for the old people, that the old age people who are living in different parts, who are struggling, are able to access these programs from wherever they are. So that is her version. She wants to create a platform of that. There's another businesswoman who is in Singapore and she's running a startup of a pet store. And for her, the whole version of this is to be able to create a pet store which brings happiness to people's homes. So all of them that's the best version of their story using their powers. So that's why I asked you the second question. In this world, what positive impact are you creating on someone other than yourself? It should be at least one more person other than yourself. It could be one person at home, one person at work, one person in the community, or it can be a number of people, right? So what is in that best version of your story? Because many people come to me and say, Subha, my best version of the story is I won the lottery. So I said, that's fantastic. You won the lottery. So what impact will you create after you won the lottery? What will you do with that money? So what is the impact you will create on someone else in that life? When you're looking at the story which you have just written now, what impact are you creating? You see, that scientist is thinking about people who can't walk. Even the pet store owner is thinking of bringing happiness to people who are alone at home. So each one is thinking of how do I create a positive impact on someone other than myself. Now here's the third question, and this is the most powerful question. I remember when I was working in Standard Chartered Bank, we used to have a program called Seeing is Believing. And as part of that, initially they started off with doing cataract operations. And then they even expanded that to spectacles. So initially you thought you're giving the impact you're creating through that is that you're helping people regain their vision. That's the first level impact. But what's the next level impact? When a poor lady or man at home can see, they can get back to work. When they can get back to work, they can put food back on the table. So by putting the vision back into their eyes, you are putting life back into the home. So the question is, what is your ripple? By making that positive impact happen, what is the ripple that you're spreading around the world? By making you understand that you have a power to create a positive impact, I'm putting a positive impact and power into your hands. But when you go with this confidence and create an impact at your work or at home, and give confidence to your children, to let your children realize their superpower and live it to their fullest, that's the ripple I create through you. So, and then they will go forth and do their own impact and ripple. So this is what inspires us. The third question is what will inspire and give that meaning that Emily Smith speaks about. This is the meaning that will energize us every morning. When we go to bed, this is what we're thinking about. So this is the mantra which runs our life, the ripple that we create through our work and through our life. So I hope you got some answers. I would love to hear some of them as we go through the rest of the evening. But I want you to think that your life is your legacy. This is what I say to everyone. The children and the next gen at work are looking as to what we celebrate, how we speak, how we think, and how we act. That is the only legacy we leave behind. That is the only legacy we leave behind. Your impact by living your best life and living your superpower is on your family, because you're telling your children that I want you to understand and live your superpower and live it to the fullest. You're saying that they have the choice to live a life that is authentic and to live a life to their superpowers, not something that others expect them to live. Imagine the power of children when you say that to them. Imagine the power in the youngsters at work when you say that to them. The community. The impact that you unleash on the community through your best life and the world. Now, coming to the world, I wanted to say this. Whenever International Women's Day comes, I say that I want more men to start thinking like women. Because women bring a very special energy to the workplace and to the home. What they bring home, they also bring to work. They bring a different way of thinking not just with the mind, but as I just said, with the heart and with the soul. If we have to have a future as humanity, this needs to be there as an integral part of our community, our society, our workplace, our economy. So that will not just bring joy to their own hearts, to you as women, and men, but also about bringing joy to hearts around the world, in the organization, in the community, and in the world. So this is why, for me, this is very powerful to be able for not just the women in this group, but also to men to understand why this is so important for our future as humanity. And this is the best legacy that we can all leave behind, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, or whether it's in our community. Before I hand it over back to you, Bronnie Ware is a very special author to me because she wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Bronnie Ware was a palliative care nurse, and she worked with people essentially taking care of them in the last days, weeks. And she said, what is the number one regret that people have? And everyone said, most likely that they didn't spend enough time with their family. But no, that was not the case. The number one regret that people had was, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself and not just live the life that others expected of me. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself and not just live the life that others expected of me. I was mentioning just before this call opened that in June this year, I was in India. During COVID, India was locked down. I was in Chennai because my mother-in-law had passed away. She died very peacefully at home. But she died with a lot of regret. She had this aspiration to have become a Carnatic music singer. But her life wish remained unfulfilled. And during the last 15 years of her life, she was so overcome by grief that she could not step onto that journey, but it was just too late. To me, every one of us has the potential to get out there today and make the rest of our life the best of our life. And that is the best legacy that we can leave. If anyone saw us living it even for 5 days, for 1 week, for 1 day, that's the power we leave behind for the next year. So I've given you a structure. Think about how you can find your power, which is who you authentically are. And I've given you 3 questions to ask of how to make this life meaningful, to find that energy in you, to find that power in you, and create and leave behind that legacy and create that impact on the world. So live your best life, for in that lies the future of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Subha. That was very, very useful. I think we will get some questions now from the audience, but I'd probably get started so that, we can get started with a few. I think we've got about 10 minutes that we can take some questions on. So thanks, Subha, again for covering that. And I think you've got most of us, I'm sure, thinking very deeply. But the broader question I have is, I think most of us lead a life which is about the here and now. Every day is about, at least in my case, I can tell you, get up in the morning, figure out what needs to be done, what meetings to be attended, and how does one then actually within the kind of, while leading a practical kind of working life, or for that matter, running a household or whatever, how does one actually take time off to kind of think about it? What are the practical tools that you can leave us with to say that, yes, we can determined to do it, etc., may work for a couple of days, but after that, what happens? How does one get that innate discipline? I don't know whether you have any thoughts around that, Subha.
Thank you, Shalini, for asking that question, because one is about knowing it, and the next is about doing it, and the third is about being it. So how do you go from knowing to doing to being? A very powerful and important question. So first of all, the way I have discovered this is I have a process of taking time off every year and being with myself. So I spend at least 3 days just with myself, but I feel that I have now, that's because I was not educated on the process, but now I have developed it that we can do this in 1 day. If people just spend 1 day with themselves, and I call it a day with me, which is being your best friend for a day, in understanding and not judging yourself, this story will emerge. You just have to spend 1 day in a year, take it like a vacation, a break, just go away somewhere and just be with yourself. Drop your devices, but pick up your pen and then do it with that. So that's one way to find the answer. But after that, it's an important question that you asked. Now that I know, what do I do with it? Sometimes we are fortunate that this is connected with the current work and life that we're leading. So it's easy to integrate it. Sometimes it's not. Then what do we do? So this is what I say, that when the stock market grows 1% in a day, we think it's a glorious day. But when we get 1% better today, we think it's average or below average. So start only by saying, I will allow 1% of that to happen this week. You don't even have to go beyond that. So every week, start to integrate a little bit time. So I started, almost 15, 16 years ago, and I would just spend time on weekends, maybe half of a weekend, trying to teach people yoga or meditation. That's how I started. Very simplistically, some 2-3 hours, I would do this. And that's all I did for a long time. Then I would do 1 weekday class at work. So gradually you start, but for me, the beauty is this, and this is what I've understood, and the science says this. Just knowing it makes us feel meaningful. And here's an alternate to this. There's a person who said, I go to work during the week, and he was a banker, because I can write my book on the weekend. And if I stop writing my book on the weekend, I have no energy to go back next week to work. So his whole story was about getting that book done. And he was writing a book on architecture, actually, not something serious, about how sustainable living can be done with the science of architecture. But for him, that was so meaningful. And the work gave him the ability to go and do that on the weekend. So I feel just bring it in micro doses, in small doses, whatever we can bring this into our work and into our life.
Thanks, Subha. I think that was very useful. I think there's one question that's come up, and that's probably relates back to where you started with Mirabai Chanu, etc. What really makes champions the champions they are? I mean, is there something you can attribute it to? Is it a combination of things? And your thoughts on that? Yeah.
I think they are truly focused, committed, obsessive about that one thing that they want. And everything else they do is a supporting story into that. Everyone in their lives support them on that journey. whether it's at home, whether they are friends, everyone is supporting that person to make that life happen because they have chosen to express to the world that this is my story and I'm going to be focused on this. So that's actually, if you see most champions, is not just in their practice, it's not just in their, it's also in their mind. That focus and attention. So I always ask people this question very simply. If you had a story, ask yourself, what percentage of your calendar is dedicated to that story? So just keep improving on that. So who do you hang out with and what do you hang out with? What activities and who are the people and how they are all connected with that story. So that's what makes champions champions, because they are obsessively focused on their story. If you saw all the 4 people there, that's what they did, right? They just were so committed.
There is another question that's come up here. It says, there is no meaning and knowledge acquired if it's not practiced. How does this relate to the power of meaning? I think you alluded to that when you went to that, knowing it, doing it, and being it. But you could probably expand on this.
So I know something, and Marshall Goldsmith also talks about this, that you have to live the life. I talk about living the life in a very simplistic way first. I ask people that if I write a story, if you ask me my story, I will only give you a mantra. That mantra is empower and inspire people to live their best life. I kid you not. Every night when I go to bed, I repeat this mantra 9 times. Every morning when I wake up, I repeat this mantra 9 times. Why do I say this? Why do I repeat this? Because every moment, everything that we experience during the day is indexed in our brain at night when we sleep. But is indexed on what basis? Based on my mantra. When I wake up in the morning, how do I organize myself? Because I need to remind myself what my story is, but I just say my mantra so I know what my story is. So the point is, we can very simplistically start living it tomorrow, tonight. So if you just convert it into 2-3 words and just remind ourselves that this is the meaning in my life, that's all we need to do.
Don't think we have any further questions, but I think we have some people live who may be able to ask questions. So, Madhav, any questions from the team that's on the call?
I think that's all from the question side. We can conclude and hand it over to me, then we'll take forward.
Okay, great. I think that
everybody is searching their inner self to find out, that particular world and the particular word. Actually, I think
So I want to say, Mother, that it's a journey, and the story is never perfect.
Yes.
But the magic is start living it today, not wait for the perfect story before we start living it.
I completely agree with that.
I think, so I'll just quickly kind of wrap up and hand it over back to you, Madhav. Thank you so much for that session. I think you've got everybody thinking very deeply about the power of meaning and what that kind of inner self is about. From some of the stuff that you said, a day with oneself, I have seen you do that for years together now, and I know how energized it makes you. Though I just can't visualize how you do it, because it's going to be impossible to be away from one's gadgets for 3 days in a row. But I've seen you do it, and it's truly inspiring. I think the whole knowing it, first of all, knowing it and spending some time knowing it and then doing it and then being it is important. The focus and attention you spoke about how important that is from a kind of, dedication to the cause, and therefore the focus about it. And I think the whole ethos and philosophy that there is something much more deeper than just happiness. How do you get more meaning from one's life? So I think a lot to take away, a lot to think about, a lot to work with. Not an easy journey. And as you said, one's got to start today, and search for that inner meaning. So thank you very much for the time you've given us and for the insights you've given us. Thank you so much. Madhav, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Shalini. And Subha, I'm just taken back to what Shalini Madam actually introduced you in the first phase, when we were having that even chat. She was saying that you look the same since the time she knows you from 92 onwards. I believe this kind of thoughts, this kind of breaks which you've taken, and the journey which you've undertook, must have made that difference. You look the same even now. I believe COVID must have given many of us a chance to actually do what you said. A leveler which COVID was. We all thought of those little tiny things which we otherwise think as tiny were so important in our lives. We started realizing that there are so many nice, cute creatures at our homes, whom we could actually interact with. All those kind of things were there. And suddenly people are actually doing that search for that break or that day off, or maybe that time just for ourselves, to see what best can suit us and what is actually the thing that we are missing. At least that much has happened with COVID, I guess. And as you rightly said, without that kind of an ambition, just to create a legacy, it could be anything. A legacy for oneself is something which I also always say that, but otherwise life is of no use. If you are just living like an engineer, like a banker or a doctor, and say that okay, he was a good engineer, big deal. That was his kind of kriya, but not a karma. The karma is what is important to create a legacy for. So I believe all of us must have at least taken this 1 hour of our day, or 1 hour of our life today to just take a break and think about it, whether we are on the right track. I can see many serious thinkers like Dr. Leela Ramamurthy, Dr. Lalita, and all very seriously watching this. They are into all kinds of meditations and such kind of activities, and I'm sure they'll 100% agree with you on that. And all of us, let us take it as an awakening call, kind of an enlightenment which you have not got it so far. If at all you've not got it so far, let's take a break and think about what we are doing and whether we are on the right track and whether we are understanding our own power. That is what we need to actually identify. I guess. Thank you so much, Subha, for that very, very brief but crisp and enlightening talk. I'm sure it must have made some kind of a trigger somewhere in somebody's life. And as you said, the thousands which are connected with each one of us, the ripple can just start moving from now. Thank you so much. Before I hand it over to my Joint Secretary for the formal vote of thanks, let me just give you a couple of announcements. We have a very, very important meeting coming up on 25th of November. We have an extraordinary general body meeting happening on the online platform on 25th November. We have some very important changes in the bylaw to be made, as well as some decisions to be taken regarding a financial year being realigned with the taxation year. So many important things which are coming up, and I am sure you all must have got the notice in your mailbox by now. This is happening on 25th of November. That is a day from now. That's day after tomorrow at 6 p.m. on the Zoom platform. You will be getting your Zoom ID as well as the password very soon in your registered mailboxes. All the members, please note and be there to discuss, deliberate, and pass, if you find suitable, those amendments which are being proposed. And 30th November, last day of the month, we have the next of the Leader Talks series by the program committee. Leader Talks lecture session by Professor Dr. Rao Tatavarthi. He is the director of GVP Group of Institutions, and he is going to talk on managing the carbon emission obligations of India. That is on 30th November in our Leader Talks KMA series, Professor Dr. Rao Tatavarthi. So till then, that is 25th November is the next date for us. That is day after tomorrow for the EGM, and on 30th November for Leader Talks session. But now it's time for the formal vote of thanks by our Joint Secretary, Mr. Algiers Khalid. Algiers Khalid is an entrepreneur. He's an IT businessman who is actually there from a huge family running the business of shipping as well as many other activities. Over to you, Algiers, to propose the formal vote of thanks.
President Madhav Chandran, our invited speaker of the day, Mr. Subbu Vaidyanath, founder being Satwa, chair of Women's Managers Forum, Madam Shalini Warrior, galaxy of past presidents of KMA, managing committee, and KMA members. Thank you, Mr. Subbu Vaidyanathan, for sparing your valuable time to be here today at KMA and for sharing enlightening thoughts on self-power to navigate transition and challenges in work and life. Very happy to listen to amazing stories of women from diverse fields who made a mark in their respective lives, in their communities, and also sharing to the world what women are capable of in changing this world and also to inspire others. Thanks also for the masterclass of self-power to explain the power of meaning and that all of us have a superpower. And if we identify that power, one can have one's joy of life with that rainbow story. Thanks also for explaining all the 4 parts of any story and how to make an impact in one's life to create a positive impact. Great to hear that the mantra is to identify that superpower and to share it with all the 4 parts of the story, the relationship, work, community, and the self, to create a ripple effect, to leave a legacy of one's life. The powerful statement you made, your life is your legacy and live your best life, not what others expect from you, is going to resonate among all of us for a long, long time. I'm sure everyone thoroughly enjoyed the experiential session, as you mentioned. Kudos to the chair of Women's Managers Forum, Madam Shalini Warrior, for arranging today's speaker from yet another different field of interest.
Sorry, there, Algiers, or is said enough of thanks and gone off?
Madam Shalini Warrior, who did an excellent job in introducing the speaker of the session, and also for taking us through the session and for bringing out the best during the interactive session, also summing it up. Thanks to all the past presidents, managing committee, and K members for attending in large numbers today. We had good attendance throughout the talk. I also would like to place on record and thank the KMS Secretariat team led by our Executive Director, Lieutenant Jojo Jacob, and his team members, Preechit and Padma Kumar. Thank you all. Also, thanks to our program sponsors, Medivision, Hale, Sira, and Varma Homes. They all play a very important role in success of all the programs of KMA. Before I conclude, request President to hand over the specially curated memento to the speaker.
Purjit, can we? Yeah. So, but this is something very special about KMA, a signature memento, which is a real one, not only an online one. We will try. This is a proof of you being here today with us amongst our delegates. So this will reach you by courier, whichever address you can give to our secretariat. Thank you so much.
So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, one and all. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Algiers, and thank you all for this wonderful session and for being here. Thank you, Subha, once again, and let's call it a day. Be safe, be at home or wherever